I got five on it. Sup, people? Sup, family, cousins, kinfolk, nieces, nephew, uncles, aunties, nieces, uncles, nephews, everybody. Welcome back. I'm doing fine. Hopefully y'all are doing fine. And we are yet back again with just another simple video. What we have today is something I've been honestly wanting to get to, because like I said, I went and watched the movie. Well, me and my girl went and watched the movie. It was decent. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible by any means, but it was decent. Oh, well, before I'm talking about the Captain America movie. The new Captain America movie with my boy Sam. Like I said, decent movie. Wasn't by any means completely horrible, but wasn't the greatest. And again, this is all coming from somebody who isn't a movie critic or a hardcore television / whatever critic. Just not your average viewer. Give me your average ass review. So don't be expecting, at this scene and No, I'm not doing none of that. I'm just giving you an average basic review from my perspective with my thoughts. But on that note, no. New RockStars had basically dropped this a little while ago. I was going to review it after I watched the movie, and I said, before everything goes into an uproar like, oh, well, spoilers, let's give it a little time, and then we'll get into it. I believe 2 weeks is enough by now, because I still want to watch it, because there is some tidbits and Easter eggs that they dropped in this movie that I will say were chef's kiss. They were actually pretty good. So, but from here, hop straight into it, baby. All right, and in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of all the Easter eggs you missed in Captain America Brave New World. Every MCU callback, visual detail, and clue for upcoming titles like Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Let's go through this film scene by scene to cover it all. And you can now join New Rockstars as a channel member by hitting that join button down by subscribe. Supporting us as a member gives you access to custom emotes and early access to ad-free versions of our special rewatch breakdowns like our current Daredevil rewatch series. Okay, Captain America Brave New World opens not with the Marvel Studios fanfare that we've seen in front of every MCU film since 2016's Doctor Strange, but rather with just the words Marvel Studios Presents in black and white. And you'll notice the light flickers a bit on the text, like we're in a briefing being shown CIA or FBI surveillance imagery in a slideshow of some spycraft underway. It's a big deal for a Marvel movie to bypass the studio bumper that we've seen for the past 9 years, but there is a thematic reason behind this. Director Julius Ona has said that he drew inspiration from political conspiracy thrillers like 1973's Day of the Jackal, 1967's Les Samurai, and 1967's Point Blank, as well as Harrison Ford starring Tom Clancy movies like 1994's Clear and Present Danger. All to capture the paranoia of trying to uncover a mystery within a corrupted political and military establishment. And opening the film with titles looking like this, I think it's designed to teleport the viewer away from the escapist Marvel fantasy that we're used to, back to something closer to the real world. The kind of grounded tone that served 2014's Captain America the Winter Soldier so well. Also, I think The Day of the Jackal and the 1997 Richard Gere Bruce Willis remake, The Jackal, might have been the inspiration for one of the 2 brainwashed American pilots having the call sign of Jackal. We open on President-elect Thaddeus Ross, Harrison Ford, replacing the late William Hurt, who played the role in 2008's Incredible.
R.P. to William Hurt. Granted, I already heard about his passing and whatnot, but I hadn't at the time previously, I hadn't realized that Buddy had passed. I mean, this was a while back ago. I had just happened to come across it. I was like, oh snap! I didn't know he had passed. So just shout out to him because he was a phenomenal character. I would have loved to seen him play as like the actual Red Hulk because I know they were gearing up toward it, but phenomenal character. Rest in peace to him.
2016's Captain America Civil War, 2018's Avengers Infinity War, and 2019's Avengers Endgame, and 2021's Black Widow, but then sadly passed away in 2022. Ross is backstage at his election night victory speech, the cheering crowd nearly silent to him as he hears a soft ringing. Framed and shot with him, the words "together" in front of behind him. Together has a period at the end of it. This is Ross's campaign slogan, which I think recalls the "Stronger Together" slogan of the Clinton-Kane campaign in 2016, but the fact that they had to punctuate the word with a period feels so forceful. Kind of a mix of jab, but also like a boomer dad texting you, not realizing that putting a period after okay in the text comes off like he's mad at you. Kind of like dad saying, "We will go on this trip together. I will turn this car around." Also, the word "together" closing in on Ross from either side of this opening shot, I think is meant to remind him that he didn't get to this victory alone, but he was using the enhanced intelligence of his prisoner, Samuel Stearns, and it might have even been Stearns who recommended this word as a slogan, maybe as a way to subliminally remind him, "You didn't get here alone, so remember your promise, old man. We are in this together." Ross asks about his daughter, Betty, played by Liv Tyler in the 2008 film. He's been on the outs with her since when he was General Ross, hunted her boyfriend Bruce Banner in the events of that film, when Bruce is played by Edward Norton. Ross dulls the ringing in his ears by...
Right quick, okay, because, as we seen in the trailer, Buddy was a Red Hulk, cool, whatever. But on the aspect of, just a regular Hulks, I will say Edward Norton was probably my favorite. It's a close tie between Ang Lee's and Edward Norton's. Edward Norton's had it beat just a little bit because of the rawness of the Hulk. Like, Buddy was just timing every time. Whenever he transformed, Buddy was just on timing. I'm not even gonna lie to you. He'd fire. But I remember watching that first Hulk movie by Ang Lee. And the mirror scene when Buddy was wiping the mirror, and what other scene was it? I think it was the dog scene. I think it was, because I watched this when I was a kid, so it was, fam, not even gonna lie to you, it scared the literal piss out of me. It scared the literal piss out of me. Not even gonna lie to you. But that's what made it so good, was that it drew my attention so well and kept it there. So, but I will say it's a tie, it's a close tie, but I'd say Edward Norton's Hulk is a little bit above Ang Lee's in likability and favoriteness for me. Nothing wrong with Mark Ruffalo's. Not even not to say that his is bad or anything, because when he first initially, what was his first? Yeah, in the Avengers was his first showing. It wasn't a bad one, but for me personally, I always saw Hulk as, one of the bigger characters, I would say, like in actual size. When they sized him down and made him, not too much bigger than any of the other Avengers in there. And not to say he wasn't raw. He wasn't like showing just raw strength in the Avengers movies as well. It just wasn't as powerful when he came on scene versus when you saw it in Edward Norton's or Ang Lee's. Granted, again, they had their own movies. He shared a movie with them. But just his screen presence wasn't... It didn't scream Hulk to me. It screamed... Well, it said Hulk, but it didn't scream Hulk.
taking his heart medication, which we find out later is poisoned with gamma radiation by Samuel Stearns. Ross's heart issues actually came up as a throwaway line back in 2016 Civil War.
5 years ago, I had a heart attack after 13 hours of surgery and a triple bypass.
So 5 years prior to 2016 was 2011, which is when, in the in-universe MCU timeline, the events of the Incredible Hulk film took place. So, based off of that, Ross had been using Stearns to keep himself alive and plot his political career really since the beginning. After serving as an Army general, Ross became U.S. Secretary of State. Most recently in the MCU, the president was James Ritson, played by Dermot Mulroney in Secret Invasion, but presumably Ritson lost re-election in either a primary challenge or a general election to Thaddeus Ross. We don't know either of their political parties, but now I'm wondering if Samuel Stearns might have manipulated the media to turn public opinion against Ritson during his Skrull and Alien purge. Did the writers of this movie think that hard about it? Did they even watch Secret Invasion? Who knows? Ross greets the cheering crowd.
I didn't. Don't even know what they were having in Secret Invasion. Don't even know what it's about either. Am I going to watch it? No.
Who hold signs reading "Ready for Ross" and prints of his face similar to the Hope poster of Obama in 2008. None of the signs mention a VP running mate, which is a bit odd, especially since this would now be the president by the end of this movie, and that leaves the door open for future MCU titles to decide. Ross says in his speech, "We've recognized the urgency of this moment, from the disappearance of half of mankind to the emergence of a celestial mass in the Indian Ocean. The threats we face show no signs of slowing down." He's referring, of course, to the blip period from Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, where half of all life dusted away from Thanos' snap and then returned 5 years later thanks to the Avengers time heist. Also to the emergence from the 2021 Eternals film, a movie that revealed that since ancient times, the cosmic gods, the Celestials, implanted in Earth's core a celestial seed that after millennia of
I was wondering how they were going to incorporate this big old mass of thing just sprouting up from, the world. Fam. And even in this shot, not even on my TV. Because if I remember correctly, I was about to say the Essentials, the Eternals, at the end, Tiamat was rising. But he had his head, and it was an arm, I believe, and a hand, like a whole forearm, and I think maybe a little bit of body. But from this shot specifically, I don't remember if this was just like a representation or if this was actually the rising of Tiamat. For one, nobody's going to acknowledge maybe, all the people that might have died, because Buddy is bigger than a planet, and you're rising from a planet. Nobody's just going to acknowledge that. I'm pretty sure a lot of people died from him rising. But cool. Okay, we're just going to bypass that. No, we're still on the topic of the blip and half of the world just completely, shriveling away like shards of paper. Cool. Understandable. But wouldn't you think that this is just as bad? You seeing this big old mass of thing just rising up from out of the middle of the planet and nobody says a peep? Again, this was my thought process before watching the movie and even somewhat, watching the movie. I just always question that because I'm like, that it didn't make any sense, and I was wondering how they were going to bring this up. So,
human development was set to emerge by hatching out of Earth's crust and would destroy the planet, a process that was stalled by the Eternals. Ever since that film, it's become a bit of a running joke that no Marvel title has addressed the insanity of a giant celestial corpse in the ocean of this world, aside from a throwaway joke in She-Hulk. Now, this movie finally...
seriously, nobody addressed this. Like, it was just this big old mass of just thing just rising up from the earth. And all of a sudden, it just froze. And nobody questioned it. questions it. Nobody says a peep. Nobody says nothing at all. I don't even remember when Eternals came out. Either way, you got this big old head and this hand just popping out of the middle of the earth. And not getting too logical here. You're like, yo, wouldn't that kind of mess up the axis of the earth? Or like the rotational mass of the earth? And then like something along those lines? Like something that big just popping up out of nowhere. Wouldn't that kind of mess up, something revolving around with the earth? Whatever. Cool. Whatever.
Addresses it. Sam Wilson watches this news from Abe's Bar, which might be a reference to Abe's Head Bar, a bar that was smashed through by Red Hulk in 2008's Hulk #7. The bartender here covers Sam's drinks and calls him Cap, along with the Spectrum newscaster calling Sam Captain America. And it's just nice to see the regular world accepting Sam as the new Captain America after he finally embraced the promotion and the events of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Also, you'll notice hanging up in Abe's Bar is a jersey for Howard University, which is an HBCU in the Washington, D.C. area. Spectrum News shows old footage of a Thaddeus Ross press conference where Harrison Ford sports a mustache like the one William Hurt had, and
I thought it was so weird seeing this man with a mustache. When they cut to this in the movie, I thought it was just so weird. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this.
what General Ross in the comics is depicted as having, and he kicks over a podium, foreshadowing his swatting the Rose Garden podium in the final act. We also see archive footage of the Battle of Harlem, the final act of the 2008 Incredible Hulk film, when Hulk fought Emil Blonsky, Abomination, who recently returned with a change of heart, and Shang-Chi and She-Hulk. We also see this news footage is playing in the Camp Echo 1 basement lab where Samuel Stearns lives. He tests out a screeching sound effect and flashing lights that will later be part of his mind control trigger process. The last time we saw Samuel Stearns, Tim Blake Nelson, he used the codename of Mr. Blue in the 2008 film as he coordinated with Bruce Banner via the dark web, and then revealed he was way too obsessed with the godly potential of gamma-irradiated Hulk blood, so he ended up helping Emil Blonsky take Bruce Banner's blood serum to become the Abomination, and in the wreckage that followed, some of that serum dripped into Samuel Stearns' head wound to enlarge his cranium. That's the last time we saw him, but this movie brings him back 16...
This motherfucker was ugly as hell. Hey, yo, when they first initially showed him in the movie, I was like, ugh. First off, let me start off by saying, phenomenal makeup work. And generally it does look good because it makes your stomach churn. It's like you can't tell me you look at that and be like, ugh. Like, you can't help but just say, what the fuck is that? Ew, that just looks ugly. But again, it's so good, it makes your face frown up. So, hey, phenomenal makeup work. But yeah, this motherfucker was ugly. I was not expecting it to look like this. I wasn't expecting, I was not expecting this. I was expecting, the elongated head, maybe green skin. I was like, oh, he just went for the deformed look, like the truly deformed look, like, ugh.
Years later, in the comics, Samuel Stearns, the leader...
Yeah, I was expecting this. I wasn't expecting to look like some acid just dribbled all over your head, and now your head got concaved in and just... Ugh.
Is the Hulk's primary antagonist, the leader of the intelligentsia, with a smooth, enlarged green head that sometimes has some ridges and bumps in the design. This movie's design leans into the ridges to give the character some monstrous texture, to emphasize the brain power of the character, and perhaps to emphasize the monstrous texture and gross us out to avoid the CGI cringe that viewers felt upon seeing big, smooth-headed characters like MODOK. Camp Echo 1 is also a reference to a base in 2017's Champions No. 10, a New Mexico containment entertainment facility for Bruce Banner, designed as a peaceful neighborhood, retrofitted by Amadeus Cho. Amadeus Cho, a genius kid who becomes a new Hulk in the comics, was rumored to appear in this film as a tech-savvy kid who figures out Ross's medication has gamma radiation, but he appears nowhere in the final cut of this film. We are getting to know Amadeus Cho a bit in the Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man series.
I was just about to say that is another good show. I'm not even gonna lie to you. That was another good show. I finished watching this as well. This is a really good show. I like the storytelling and really the animation of it, because they made it look so. This is not on the topic of Captain America, but just real quick, like the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the series that they did on Disney. Love the animation. Me personally, I love the storytelling and the involvement of I wouldn't say the involvement, but the different telling of how Norman Osborn plays. Norman Osborn plays that wouldn't say fatherly figure, but that role model figure in Peter's life. So I definitely do like it. It was definitely 8.5 out of 10 for me personally. Average viewer, average review. But yeah.
So now we jump 5 months later. We learn later in this movie that the rest of this movie is set 2 years after the events of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, this movie, as we'll see, is confirmed to take place in April 2027 in the MCU timeline, which is a bit odd because we previously assumed The Falcon and the Winter Soldier took place in spring 2024 in the MCU timeline, and this is supposed to be 2 years after that. That said, Thunderbolts will take place in 2027, and this would also mean that Thaddeus Ross was elected in November 2026, meaning the MCU is officially on an alternate election year timeline, similar to the universe of the West Wing, where presidential elections happened in 1998, 2002, and 2006. In Oaxaca, Mexico, Air Force Lieutenant Joaquin Torres, Danny Ramirez, returns from The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on a mission to liberate a Mexican Catholic mission from Serpent. This movie's named for the Serpent Society. So in the comics, the Serpent Society was an organization of snake-themed villains opposed to Captain America in the 80s, created by Mark Grunwald and Paul Neary to symbolize trade unions of the time. Ooh, trade unions! Captain America's Serpent Society was the fake title for the third Captain America movie when Kevin Feige announced it in October 2014 before, during that panel, swapping the title to Captain America Civil War. Sam Wilson, codenamed Eagle One, soars in at high altitude wearing a white cowled suit similar to the one given to him by the Wakandans at the end of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but now you'll notice a bit less fabric around the head and the neck. He goes into a controlled dive, forming a cloud funnel around his body, which then blows away when he opens his wings like a parachute.
New Lux Cravings boxes from Taco Bell. For $5, go classic. For $7, go lax.
Y'all better stop eating Taco Bell. Shit yourselves.
Sam lands hard in the courtyard. Now, why wouldn't his legs be broken here? He didn't take the Super Soldier Serum. It's because this suit is made out of vibranium, and vibranium absorbs kinetic energy. He says,
Wait for it.
Indeed, Anthony Mackie has been waiting for the chance to star in his own Marvel movie, and it's hard not to draw a parallel here between this line and Aaron Burr's Wait For It from Hamilton. Sam takes out the serpent goons by bouncing his shield among them, and then flies up and takes down two more, doing the wing barrel roll move that I call the flipsy whipsy. And he did this in the opening sequence in Lagos and Civil War. I love this move. Sam shields himself with his wings, which now glow purple in a hexagonal grid, the same hexagonal design of the shielding used in various spots of Wakanda in the Black Panther films. After absorbing heavy fire, Sam slams his wings back down to form the iconic Black Panther percussive blast move that we first saw T'Challa use against the Border Tribe in the final battle of the 2018 Black Panther film. Sam's drone Red Wing returns, locating hostages inside. While his orders directly from the president are to recover a canister, Captain America always does the right thing and goes to save the people. We meet the head of the Serpent Society, Seth Volker. Sidewinder, played by Giancarlo Esposito. We start by
Buddy is always a villain. I swear to you. I don't keep up with him like that, but from every character role that he plays, Buddy is always a villain. Granted, amazing villain. Good villain. Hey, just good that he plays his role very, very well. But he's always a villain. You know, I'm like, darn, is it for anybody who who watches him on a more consistent basis, refer me to either a game, a movie, a show, or anything of the sort where Buddy actually plays a good guy. Because I would love to see that dynamic. I don't know of anything personally. Like I said, every time I see him, he's always playing a villain. And here, Far Cry, I can't think of the other TV shows. But I know it was a couple of the TV shows I've seen him in where he's just a force to be reckoned with as a villain. But hey, he was something in this movie too. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Seen the patch of the Serpent Society on his back depicting a skull with a snake snaking through it. Originally in this movie, Sidewinder was going to be played by WWE superstar Seth Rollins, and they actually shot many of these sequences, but during the reshoots, they recast the role with Esposito. We learned in the scene that Sidewinder was going to meet.
I'm telling you, again, when you play a role so well, you can't help but to play that part in everything you do. Not to say that my boy Seth Rollins probably couldn't have played this part, but it's like, fam, you can just look at him. It's like you're just up to some nefarious acts. Like, you just seem like you just have a evil plan of taking over the world just sitting in your back pocket, maybe 2 or 3. But again, hey, shout out to Buddy, though. It was, again, like I said, very good at playing his role whenever he does carry on an act. So,
a buyer at this Catholic mission, but Samuel Stearns did not show. We see a close-up of the canister, and its digital screen reads, I think that's 815 degrees Celsius, so that would be about 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. I assume they would need to keep the refined adamantium inside of it in a molten state because, as Brian Cox's Colonel Stryker told us in X2 X-Men United,
tricky thing about adamantium is that if you ever manage to process its raw liquid form, you gotta keep it that way. Keep it hot.
Now, that was in a different movie universe, but it is now part of the multiverse that the 616 universe will be bridging up with in Avengers Doomsday. But, 815 degrees Celsius is hot, but not that hot when it comes to molten metal. Iron melts at 1538 degrees Celsius. Gold melts at 1063 degrees Celsius. Silver melts at 961 degrees Celsius. But I don't know, maybe I'm just misinterpreting this 815 number, and it's instead a reference to Oceanic 815 from Lost. A female Serpent Society mercenary played by stuntwoman Erica Keck holds a nun at gunpoint. Now, this character is not Serpent Society member Diamondback, but that character was played by Rosa Salazar in the removed Seth Rollins version of these sequences. Sam finds Sidewinder in the chapel, and what's crazy about this set is the floor, the columns, and the specific stained glass window art are all the same set as the 1549 French church from Loki, where Mobius found that kid whom Sylvie had given that bubblegum to. Huh? Well, again, since all the Giancarlo Esposito scenes were part of the reshoots, I assume that they saved some time and money by reusing an old set from another Marvel production in these Atlanta studios that they shoot all these movies in. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. Icelandic actor Johan Hakur Johansson plays Serpent Society member Copperhead and keeps Sam busy while Sidewinder snakes.
I ain't gonna lie to you, he would give Sam to work for a little bit. Especially that scene right there where he's sitting there I'll just call it Batista Bomb. When Buddy Batista bombed him into that daggone bench, oh my God, I was like, oof, this is hard. And I don't mean it in a good way. It's just hard to watch. Like, Buddy is just getting his tail handed to him. Again, I know. He didn't take the serum. I know. Still, I'm like, damn. You getting your butt whooped and handed to you.
Away. Joaquin takes out the bikers and retrieves the adamantium canister. Copperhead slashes the star of the chest of Sam's suit, which necessitates his upgrade to his other Wakandan supplied suit that has 2 Red Wing drones. Sam beats Copperhead and flips the shield up to his arm, the move Steve Rogers did after laying out all the Hydra guys in the elevator in Captain America Winter Soldier. SEAL Team 6 arrives, led by Commander Dennis Dunphy, who in the comics is D-Man or Demolition Man, an ally of Captain America in 1987's Captain America number 328, known for superhuman strength and sadly a heart condition, which is how this Commander Dunphy dies in this movie. Joaquin asks Sam if he'll introduce him.
Oh, no, because they did my boy dirty. I ain't gonna lie to you. They just did my boy dirty. And he was a cool little side character. Yeah, he wasn't nothing crazy. I was like, darn. They we'll get to it, but they did my boy so
To
dirty.
Ant-Man, and Sam says, no. Reminder that Sam has always been a bit annoyed with Scott Lang ever since Scott bugged him at Avengers Compound in 2015's Ant-Man. President Ross lays flowers in the grave of his wife, Karen Lee Ross. So Karen Ross was introduced in 2011's Hulk number 41. That is his wife who died of cancer when Betty Ross was 12. And I feel like they gave her the middle or the maiden name of Lee here to honor the late Stan Lee. The flower arrangement includes a cherry blossom branch. Cherry blossoms bloom in the Washington, D.C. area every spring, and in addition to playing a big role in Thaddeus's and Betty's history, the tree has a deeper historical significance between the United States and Japan. Cherry blossoms were originally brought to the Washington, D.C. area as a gift from Japan in 1912. So in this movie, the pink trees also underscore the threatened peace between the United States and Japan. The epitaph on this headstone reads, "Keep your face always toward the sunshine, and the shadows will fall behind you." This is a quote from Walt Whitman, and in a way, it's what Red Hulk Ross will have to do when he's on that
Sun getting low.
Haynes Point Street, facing the sun to put the shadows behind him. His trusted Secret Service agent and Sam's contact is Agent Layla Taylor, who in the comics was a throwback romantic interest to the Falcon, Sam Wilson, introduced in Captain America number 139 back in 1971, who, after breaking up with Sam, ends up working as a reporter exposing drug smuggling. Now, there's another grave behind Ross reading Lample, which could be a nod to graphic designer Ellen Lample, who has worked on several Marvel titles. And a fun detail, in the trailer version of the cemetery shot, they covered the name Karen Lee Ross on the headstone with Moore, which I think was a nod to Nate Moore, the longtime Marvel Studios executive who executive produced this film, and with this film, parted ways with Marvel Studios after 14 years. So I think someone in the marketing department might have had a sense of humor there. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. There's a lot.
Yep, cool. Yep.
And its customer support team is there.
Yep.
Put on the screen or go to
Yep.
Baltimore, where Joaquin wears a University of Miami tank as he comes from that city. They meet Isaiah Bradley, Carl Lumbly, returning from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He was a black Captain America who was erased from history after fighting in missions during the Korean War, and then was experimented on and imprisoned by the government for 3 decades until a nurse ended up taking pity on him and freed him. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier had a lot of great scenes between Isaiah and Sam as they talked about the complicated legacy and the relationship of Captain America to the U.S. government and to America as a whole. And the 6 episodes ended with Isaiah Bradley getting a special exhibit in the Captain America section of the Smithsonian. Isaiah here punches a punching bag right off its chain, calling back the iconic move Steve Rogers did in the 2012 Avengers movie. They train by having Sam duck around Isaiah to snatch flags off his belt. Joaquin messes with Isaiah by taking the plastic off his smartphone, setting up Isaiah's phone as the instrument of his mind control in the next scenes. In the back room, the walls all have posters of famous black athletes. By the door is Jackie Robinson, number 42 from the Brooklyn Dodgers, played by Chadwick Boseman in the 2013 film, with Harrison Ford as Branch Rickey, the owner of the Dodgers at that time. By the lockers is a poster of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, number 33, when he was still playing for the Milwaukee Bucks before his time with the Lakers. There's also a poster of heavyweight boxer Jack Johnson, who rose to prominence from 1902 to 1912, defying all the norms at the time as a black boxer taking on white opponents, and he faced some bullshit charges in the Jim Crow South. All of these men were undeniable talents who completely changed their games forever, but for all 3 of them, it came at heavy costs in forms of all kinds of racism and discrimination, very similar to what Isaiah Bradley and Sam Wilson have.
Hey, real quick, shout out to my boy for doing the extra research on these characters as well. The breakdown of these characters. So.
Had to go through. Sam reminds us that Thaddeus Ross once imprisoned him on the raft and hounded him and Steve and Natasha for years, referring to their time as fugitives from the government between Civil War and Infinity War. Indeed, the last time Ross saw Sam via a hologram call in Infinity War, he ordered Rhodey to arrest him. Though, Ross did later attend Tony Stark's funeral at the end of Endgame, where Sam was present, and according to Matt Murdock and She-Hulk, the Sokovia Accords were repealed. There's all kinds of foreshadowing lines about Ross's transformation throughout this movie. Here, Sam tells Isaiah, "I know Ross will never change." On the limo ride to the White House, Isaiah says the suit he wears is the one that he wore on his wedding day with Faith. Isaiah's late wife, Faith Bradley, was mentioned in episode 5 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and she was based on Faith Shabazz, Isaiah's wife in the comics. According to the writers of this movie, his grandson Elijah Bradley was scripted to appear in this movie, but they ended up removing the scene. The invitation to the White House lists this day as Thursday, April 16th, 2027. This is really what confirms this movie is taking place in April 2027. Now, in our calendar, April 16th, 2027 is not a Thursday, it's a Friday, and This drives me crazy. But hey, maybe this reality shifted a day when printed materials had to be warped to erase Peter Parker from the written memory. I don't know. We see banners for the Celestial Island World Summit with a logo showing an open hand reaching up toward a ring of fire. You'll note that hand gesture is similar to the pose Tiamat's hand is in, and there is a kind of Promethean aspect to the fiery design here, as if to say adamantium is a gift from the gods, and in a way, it kinda is. Now, there is a bit of a logic issue where it doesn't make total sense for the world to know the name Celestial. Like, the mythology of the Celestials and Tiamat, Arishem, etc. was known...
That was another thing I did question. I was like, nobody knows anything about Tiamat. They don't know he's a Celestial or anything like that. So how in the hell did they come up with the term Celestial for this?
Exclusively by the Eternals, and the Eternals and what they really were wasn't really known to the public. So unless the Eternal Sprite did an interview explaining that this giant thing is called a Celestial and then explained what Celestials are, I don't really know how the public would know to call this a Celestial. Around this summit are more vases of cherry blossoms, some political symbolism meant to appeal to the Japanese Prime Minister Ozaki. Sam meets President Ross in a room with James Madison and Thomas Jefferson by the window. Ross unwraps a red lollipop, which he indicates is a nicotine substitute, as he's not allowed his iconic cigars anymore. Red lollipop, red Hulk. Sam says,
I have to admit, I'm still getting used to the new look. They said lose the mustache or lose the election.
Again, if we are to assume that Samuel Stearns guided Ross's political career, that might have been advice that Ross got from that nerd in the basement. Ross reminds Sam that they haven't always agreed on how much latitude to give enhanced individuals. So enhanced was the MCU code word back in Phase 2 films when Joss Whedon legally wasn't allowed to refer to Wanda Maximoff or Pietro Maximoff as mutants. So now enhanced just is how they refer to any superpowered person. Ross asks Sam to rebuild the Avengers, saying he had a change of heart since the Sokovia Accord days and since they brought back half of all people in Endgame. The countries invited to join this treaty are the US, Japan, India, and France. So India makes sense, as they would be the closest world power to Celestial Island in the Indian Ocean. Japan seems like an option the writers went with to avoid going with China, because geopolitically, China would probably be the naval power most aggressive at going after a new island, one rich with resources in the Indian Ocean, not that far from the South China Sea. But, Disney needs their films to distribute in China, and it's super easy to piss off the Chinese film board, so Japan it is. Now, France is just a real interesting one, because they were also the country interfering with Wakandan outposts in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So what is it about France in the MCU right now that makes them so Napoleonic? Ross lectures about the adamantium discovered inside Celestial Island and its potential benefits in technology, medicine, and defense. And the image for medicine shows a human skeleton. Haha, a little hint at the most famous application of adamantium, Weapons Plus, grafting the adamantium metal on the skeleton of James Howlett, Logan, to create Wolverine. Ross says that adamantium is more indestructible than vibranium and not controlled by a small isolationist country. Real strong disses against Wakanda there. And yes, Ross declares this mineral ore to be called adamantium, making this the first official mention of adamantium in the MCU. Adamantium was first mentioned in Marvel Comics back in the Avengers number 66 in 1969 as a material forming the shell of Ultron, and its name comes from the word adamant, meaning firm and resolute, unyielding. In addition to being the substance of Wolverine's claws, technically Captain America's shield in the comics is made out of an alloy known as proto-adamantium, not vibranium. Ross says that the Japanese had refined the world's only raw sample of adamantium, but that it was stolen by the serpents, but recovered by Sam and Joaquin. Ross begins to discuss distribution, and the world map has lines that arc from Celestial Island, and the first city we see a line hit, from what I can tell, is Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Sounds like part of the plan is to profit first from this stuff. But then, over the speakers airs a brief sample of the 1950s song by the Fleetwoods, Mr. Blue. And once you realize the song is Mr. Blue, it's pretty obvious that this is coming from Samuel Stearns, who used the codename Mr. Blue in the 2008 Incredible Hulk film. This song, plus the...
Not gonna lie to you, when that song did start to play, it took a minute for people to realize, but when they start realizing, all you heard was
flashes from his phone earlier puts Isaiah and other armed personnel in the room in a hypnotic trance, so Isaiah fires at President Ross, and the others try to kill the leaders of Japan, India, and France. Joaquin and Sam spring to action, as does Ruth Bat Saraf, played by Shira Haas.
She pissed me off initially. Then I was like, okay, cool. She's alright. She's cool. But initially, when I first started, I was like, yo, didn't like her character at all. Just stuck up, snotty nose, just good.
Superhero Sabra in the comics, but this film made the character an Israeli former Black Widow agent. More on that in a bit. This kind of mind control is similar to the activation code words used by Hydra on the Winter Soldiers, including Bucky Barnes, and in both cases it's a reference to the Manchurian Candidate, where a plot to destroy America involved hypnotizing American soldiers to be activated as assassins with everyday visual triggers. Isaiah jumps out the window and Sam catches up to him by the World War I memorial on the National Mall. Only now does Isaiah come back to consciousness, telling Sam he can't go back inside and begging the agents not to mess up the suit, as remember, this is the one he married Faith while wearing. Sam pushes past Secret Service agents to get to Ross in this security bunker. Remember, Sam did not take the Super Soldier Serum in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so it's just his natural strength and his captain confidence that gets him through. At first, it seems like the president makes an exception for Sam.
He stays.
But then Ross says the same for Ruth, so here, Sam realizes what Ross really meant by together, period. Sam wants to personally investigate what happened with Isaiah, but Ross and Ruth say he's too close, and Ross adds,
You're not Steve Rogers.
a cutting insult, considering Ross just
I was like a 16-piece combo when he said that. I was like, I ain't. Yeah, I ain't. I'm a prudy one, Cap.
asked this guy to rebuild the Avengers, and he ends by calling him son, which is a pretty charged term that Ross probably never would have called Steve. Sam meets with Isaiah, who's being held at...
I ain't gonna lie to you, yeah, they were kind of wild with that one. I was looking around, I'm like, they really went with that? Like, really? Okay. Okay. You're the movie writers, not me. Thought that was a wild term to use. I was like, oh,
Joint Base Anacostia Boleyn's United States Air Force Base that's in the D.C. area. Isaiah breaks down as he tells Sam that the last thing he would want is for this to impact Sam. By the way, the newscast said that the government was pursuing death penalty charges, which is wild, considering he did not succeed in killing Ross. In the real world, federal law states that an assassin must successfully kill a president in order to face the death penalty. Attempted murder of a president is punishable by just life imprisonment. Like, we didn't lethally inject Hinckley. So what's going on here? Is CIA Director Val urging the Justice Department to go further here? On the drive back from Isaiah, Sam reminds Joaquin that Isaiah's mind control reminds him of a friend who is controlled by trigger words, referring of course.
and that's what didn't comprehend for me. If off rip, y'all, well, especially at least for Sam, like, yeah, you firsthand witnessed people being brainwashed. Specifically, like I said, coming from Bucky. Why wouldn't your first thought be to go to him? Especially, again, I didn't watch, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so apparently they had some type of, built relationship in that show. Don't know, didn't watch it, not going to anyway. But you know what he went through. Why not just go to him? Or call him. You're like, hey, yo. I know this might be a little, traumatic and stressful for you to recall on, but my boy is being held up. I need some info. What's the 411? How can you help? Yo, I just need something. Especially since apparently we done went and saved the world together and did all this and whatever that show was. Hit him up. Call him up. Hey, I need some help. Hey, yo.
To future Congressman James Buchanan Barnes, who will show up later in this movie.
And that was another thing. When did this brother become a congressman? Not saying that he couldn't, especially, hey, refinement, all lovely and dandy. But when the flim flam did Buddy become a congressman, I was like, huh? He's a congressman? Out of everything? Okay, go.
Movie, but technically the Wakandans did help Bucky get rid of that trigger, as we saw in a campfire flashback in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Joaquin and Ruth simultaneously review the White House security footage tracking Isaiah and two other mind-controlled shooters named Hunter Barcroft and Max Ventura. Hunter Barcroft is the name of an Atlanta-based production coordinator who worked on Marvel titles, including this film. The moody espionage music by composer Laura Cartman is excellent throughout this film, but really cooks in this particular intercutting sequence. And just like the surprise attack that hits Nick Fury while he's driving, as we shifted into the second act of Captain America Winter Soldier, now there's a jump scare here as Sidewinder suddenly reappears, firing on Sam's truck and...
This scene specifically, this is the one I was referring to earlier when I was talking about my boy. Hey, yo. He was on timing. I ain't gonna lie to you. But he was on timing when he came out. Again, when you play a character or play a role so well,
blowing it up. Sam and Sidewinder fight. Seth plugs him with some daggers and an axe, but we later learn that Sam is wearing vibranium chainmail beneath the shirt. Seth says that his buyer, Stearns, said that there was a 77% chance that Sam would try to talk him down, indicating that Stearns has been carefully following Sam's behavior patterns for quite some time. He later reminds us that Sam used to run group sessions for veterans. Seth shoots through his trench coat, and Sam runs into Aaron's salvage yard. The only Aaron I could find connected to the Captain America movies is DC Pearson's Aaron from the Apple Store in Captain America Winter Soldier, who, in a March 2021 Xbox Games Pass commercial with Anthony Mackie, was sort of confirmed to be the same Noobmaster 69 player who trolled Korg and Thor in Avengers Endgame.
That kid on the TV just called me a dickhead again.
Noobmaster.
Sam pours bleach on hot machinery to form a toxic smokescreen. If you look closely, that bleach is Roxxon brand. Roxxon, the energy and consumer product conglomerate of the MCU, who in the Loki series is set to become an Amazon or Buy n Large type company with company towns and mega marts in the year 2050. And it seems like they're on their way to that. And Sam ends up bringing Seth down by flinging that first dagger at him and then hits him with a double kick. Meanwhile, France and India began to waver on the treaty, so Ross has to head to Tokyo. In Sam and Joaquin's workspace, we see a whole bunch of Easter eggs here. There's a photo of Sam's days as a United States Air Force pararescue XO7 wingsuit pilot with his co-pilot Riley, who died on a mission. This photo and Riley came up in Captain America the Winter Soldier. We also see a plaque and a crest for the XO7, referring to that specific experimental wingsuit that Sam would wear when he was a pararescue pilot. We also see a photo of Sam with Bucky from their Falcon Winter Soldier days, and a commendation from the GRC. That's the international organization from the Falcon the Winter Soldier series that Sam saved from the Flag Smashers. We also see a photo of Sam's sister Sarah from the Falcon the Winter Soldier on the family boat that they have in Louisiana that we saw in that series. We also see this adorable handwritten letter.
Dear Captain America, you're so cool. I wish I was as strong and brave as you. You are definitely my favorite Avenger. Thank you for keeping us safe. Signed,
And I can't see, but I'm assuming it's...
Scotland.
Then there's also a kid's drawing of Sam next to a blonde-haired woman. Thinking maybe Carol Danvers, but I assume it's not power broker Sharon Carter. Maybe it's Natasha when she had blonde hair. Joaquin shares his research on Ruth Bat Saraf, and we cut away from Joaquin right as he says the words, "She was born in Israel," and then we cut right back to him for him to say, "She's ex-widow." So, when Cher Haas was announced to join this cast at D23 in August 2022, she was announced to be playing the character of Ruth Bat Saraf, which we all Googled and realized that was Sabra, who is a Marvel superhero from the 80s who has a backstory of being part of the Israeli Mossad. This became quite controversial over the months, and when the first teaser dropped in July 2024, Marvel Studios had to come out there and clarify that the character in this movie was a former Black Widow agent, not connected with Sabra or Mossad, but that she was still Israeli in nationality. As you can imagine, that did little to quiet some of the protests around this movie, and you may have noticed that there were quite a few shots of this character in trailer footage that did not make it in the final cut of the film, suggesting that a lot of her scenes were cut. I went into this in our What Happened with This Movie video, and it seems like the writers might have just picked a random female superhero from Marvel Comics without really thinking about where the world was and where the world would go in the years ahead, and they ended up just getting locked in with that choice. I think originally in this scene there was a different line wording about Ruth's Israeli backstory, and I think they cut away from Danny Ramirez while Ramirez recorded a line via ADR to say she was born in Israel, and then they just move on from it. In this movie, there's no other reference made to Ruth being a former Black Widow agent, which is why I think that was just a rushed bit of exposition that they added instead, but just a reminder that in the events of the 2021 Black Widow film, the widows who were part of the KGB Red Room were all liberated from Dreykov's mind control, and that all took place in 2016, right after the events of Civil War. And there's another way those events could have affected what happens in this movie I'll get to later. Sergeant Payumo, under mind control, kills 3 of the White House assassins and then himself before Ruth can talk to them, and we get a clear listen to the Fleetwood's Mr. Blue on his radio. Meanwhile, on Air Force One, President Ross works out on a Peloton. Now, assuming Samuel Stearns has hacked all of Ross's tech. I just like to imagine that he might have had this Peloton instructor say things to President Ross to get him particularly worked up and pissed off. It's just worth pointing out that it is right after this workout that Stearns waits to kill his guard in Camp Echo 1, Warden Cooper, and then talk to Ross over the phone to threaten him. So I just wouldn't put it past Stearns to get in that Peloton instructor's head. Sam and Joaquin find Camp Echo 1 in West Virginia, finding that it's beneath giant radio astronomy satellites used as a facade. But this could also explain how Stearns could have remote satellite uplink capabilities and access to all kinds of telecommunications, maybe even spot anomalies in space, like that rift in reality created between Dar-Benn and the Marvels. And yes, sneaking into this secret underground base.
That was another movie I didn't watch, so if any Easter eggs are popped up from there, I definitely don't know.
Reminds us of Steve and Natasha sneaking into the old Camp Lehigh base in Captain America the Winter Soldier, but instead of the green-headed Phase 1 sub-villain of Zola, in this basement they find the green-headed Phase 1 sub-villain of the Leader. In Samuel Stearns' lab, they find files on dozens of military personnel who Stearns has apparently already gotten to, and we see a diploma from Grayburn College. That's the university in New York where Stearns worked, where Bruce Banner and Betty Ross met him in the 2008 Incredible Hulk film. Now, fun fact, that movie's director, Louis Leterrier, wanted this college to be Empire State University, but Sony at a time refused to license out Peter Parker's college for the Marvel Universal film. But still, you may notice that Stearns is wearing an Empire State shirt in that movie. Sam finds a file on Thaddeus Ross with a chemical reaction describing the radioactive decay of thorium, TH, which, no, is not a reference to Marvel's Thor, though the element is named after the Norse mythological figure, so in a roundabout way, it kinda is. Thorium-233 is what thorium-232 becomes after it absorbs a neutron, which starts the fission process. I don't know, the chemistry isn't exact here, but they are just kind of showing how Stearns laced Ross's pills with gamma radiation. Ross meets with Prime Minister Ozaki in Tokyo, and Ozaki says that they received a CIA...
I ain't gonna lie to you, though. That prescription, you pop them things like jelly beans, boy. What? Sheesh.
Intelligence leak saying that Ross was keeping adamantium in the U.S., leaks that we later learned were made possible by Stearns. Joaquin realizes that Stearns could perform mind control on targets using a combination of flashing lights and the Mr. Blue song trigger, and Sam watches a video of a pre-2011 Samuel Stearns lecturing at Grayburn, telling his students to use those incredible brains of yours. And on this line, Stearns reveals himself with glowing green eyes and pale green desaturated skin with a bulging brain-lobed head, suggesting his gamma-enhanced brain somehow burst through the bone of his skull, like one of the cordyceps clickers in The Last of Us. Now, in the comics, the Leader normally has a very smooth, large green head, and his eyes typically don't glow green, but some depictions have made this character's head look ridged and bumpy, so it seems like they doubled down on the bumps here to make him a more monstrous figure. I have to say, I appreciate the design upgrade, as it does recall the way cordyceps-infected clickers in The Last of Us are essentially corpses that are kept alive by ever-growing fungus brains. Like, maybe we're meant to see Stearns as an old college professor who longs to be dead, but this evil gamma brain is just growing and growing and puppeting him around, keeping him alive and seeking freedom and power. I don't know, that might also just be an over-generous way to describe Tim Blake Nelson's performance in this movie. But yes, in the comics, the Leader leads the Intelligentsia, a villainous group that includes MODOK and Egghead. And in the World War Hulk's storyline, they manipulated Thaddeus Ross to become the Red Hulk. In the MCU, the Intelligentsia was the name of a sexist website and a group of bros who targeted She-Hulk. Could Stearns have been behind that group and that site? I don't know, maybe. We did see a high-tech lab with a syringe and video screens that were spying on Jen Walters. That could have been here at Camp Echo 1. But you'll notice that the way this script conveys Stearns' intelligence is just by having him citing various probabilities, saying here, my mind sees it all, every possible outcome. In the post-credit scene breakdown video, I compared this version of Samuel Stearns to Doctor Strange without needing the time stone to look ahead at 14,605 future outcomes. The Leader just kind of sees them all at once. Stearns says that Ross imprisoned him here at Camp Echo 1 for 16 years to develop technologies and health remedies and political strategies that kept Ross alive and led him to the presidency. Now, since Stearns seems to have really felt all of those 16 years, I assume that he did not dust away during the blip, but that would mean he'd be stuck down here in all those years. And since Thaddeus Ross did dust during the blip, we saw his photo on the screen at the beginning of Avengers Endgame, that could have what caused Stearns to jump ahead in his advancements without Ross's oversight. But 16 years? Yeah, that means 2011, which is when the events of the Incredible Hulk film took place, and during Fury's big week, when really the MCU got started. That would mean that since the dawn of the MCU, this guy, Samuel Stearns, has been quietly developing super weapon technology, super surveillance, all kinds of inventions for any part of the US government that happened to be led by Thaddeus Ross. So that means the Sokovia Accords could have been the Leader's idea to divide the Avengers. Maybe the Leader even knew that that conflict would unearth the truth that Steve Rogers' friend Bucky Barnes killed Tony Stark's parents.
Sir.
And since Thaddeus Ross was there when the Red Room crashed at the end of Black Widow, that could have included Dreykov's mind control technology, and maybe Samuel Stearns tweaked that mind control technology to use it on all these military personnel. There's just a lot to unpack from Samuel Stearns inventing stuff in the background of the MCU since the beginning. Like, was he aware of Hydra? Was Hydra aware of him? We'll dig into this in future videos, I promise. But here, Stearns hits Sam with a blast of sonic energy. This is the same sonic cannon that Ross's forces used to repel the Hulk in the 2008 film, so it makes sense that Stearns would have it as well. We've seen the same kind of sonic cannon used on Tony Stark's drones in Spider-Man Far From Home, as well as on Rhodey's War Machine armor in the airport battle in Civil War. What we don't see in a close-up of this lab is the trailer shot of a wall that was labeled Reset Ross, Reset America, which I guess would have shown Stearns' true plan to flip President Ross into that unstable beast. We learn that Stearns led them here so that he could escape, and Sam and Joaquin are left to fight a group of mind-controlled soldiers. And there's just some really cool shield moves here where Sam kicks the shield in midair and takes out some of the goons. As they get to the higher floor, Ruth shows up to help them as well, and we get to see why she's in the movie, I suppose. Outside, they're briefly arrested by Ross's FBI group, and Mr. Blue plays again, so the three have to flee for their lives. Ross's advisors tell him the Japanese are now advancing on Celestial Island, and in anger, he pounds the coffee table, cracking it, his Hulk rage starting to bubble up. He orders U.S. carrier group...
That was another thing. It was so many instances where Buddy was showing, showing something was wrong. And so many people were around him, in that scene specifically. Does nobody see that this man just cracked this thick-ass coffee table? He just... Fam, there's a handprint there, and there's cracks. It's broke. What type of shit you on, fam?
To beat the Japanese to Celestial Island.
If only one country is going to control, it's going to be us.
Sam drives to Commander Dunphy's Navy SEAL site at Norfolk. Sam gives Dunphy the pills he found at Camp Echo 1 to analyze, and Dunphy says he's got a guy. And we never see that analyst guy, though that guy does call Dunphy later on the phone to report the pills are gamma irradiated. And rumor has it, there was a deleted scene where we would have seen Amadeus Cho on the other end of that phone call. Sam chats with Sidewinder and says that he's seen worse than Samuel Stearns, to which Sidewinder says, not without your Avengers. And I was kind of wondering what grosser sights Sam has seen, like maybe Thanos' Outrider foot soldiers in Infinity War and Endgame, maybe the dead Dr. Nagel and Madripoor. Sidewinder says that it was his old unit that found Samuel Stearns in the wreckage of Greyburn University after the Battle of Harlem with a gamma-irradiated mind. And he says that Ross upped the gamma exposure on Stearns' brain, and that it was Stearns who paid Sidewinder through a CIA black fund to steal the adamantium to begin with. So we move on to Celestial Island. The scale of the sequence in the movie is just visually stunning.
As per usual with, most movies, get up to the climax and everything's cool. But no, the aerial scenes in this were actually really, really cool and actually really good. Not even gonna lie to you. It was not top tier, but very high tier flight scenes. Cool. It was cool.
Especially in IMAX, just to see the massive marble corpse from sea level while we hear the gasps of choir vocals, it's just like an MCU spectacle that we haven't seen in a long time, and I really dug this. Sam, Joaquin, and Ruth meet President Ross on the USS Milius, which is an actual Arleigh Burke-class Aegis-guided missile destroyer of the U.S. Navy. It's not an aircraft carrier, it's a destroyer that's part of a carrier group. Ross stands before a board that reads in red, CAP status. Now, in this kind of setting, CAP stands for Combat Air Patrol. This board is meant to track the aircraft patrol over an objective area to intercept and destroy hostile aircraft, though ironically in this scene, the status of CAP is also something that we are tracking. Sam confronts President Ross about his medical history with Stearns in Camp Echo 1, and Ross says that he was dying from a failing heart, and Stearns kept him alive with the pills, and that he just wanted to stay alive to prove to his daughter Betty that he was a changed man who could still be the papa who took her to see the cherry blossoms. Meanwhile, two American F-18 pilots, Whiskey and Jackal, go rogue, thanks to Mr. Blue, against the Japanese fleet, so Sam and Joaquin have to take off to de-escalate the dogfight. While this aerial sequence recalls the imagery of Iron Man flight scenes, and I love seeing Red Wing just carrying the shield on his own to cover Sam. I I just appreciate that we never cut to any kind of internal heads-up display for Sam or Joaquin. We just see their point of view, red-tinted goggle vision, and then like a close-up of their eyes from outside their helmet, because yeah, an internal HUD would just feel too much like Iron Man. So they capture the aerial maneuvering and choreography of an Iron Man flight sequence, but don't try to make it too Iron Man-y. And by the way, if you love this sequence as much as I did, we do have this new Captain America-inspired shirt design called Wingspan. It's available at our merch store, nerdrite.shop. It's like my favorite new shirt that the shop has come out with, and it's a great way to support new Rockstars. The Japanese fire 6 missiles at the Milius, and the Milius repels 4 of them, leaving 2. Joaquin takes out 1, and Sam just kind of surfs the last one, pushing it in the water. And I love this moment where we cut to 2 deck crew watching Sam and Joaquin jet past them, which again just grounds this dogfight from a human perspective. Sam uses his vibranium wing to slice through the wing of the Japanese fighter as Sam drops down to chase Jackal. His dive through the clouds over Tiamat's fingers just looks like we're in an icy mountain range, and it's so cool. Sam at one point frisbees the shield to take out multiple missiles, which shows that his practice with the pads on the trees in his Louisiana home in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier totally paid off. Joaquin stops 1 missile, but blows up the second one too late, causing him to be injured, and he drops into the ocean, reminding us of Rhodey's terrifying injury in his fall in Civil War.
Boom, you looking for this?
Now, during all this, the leader has called President Ross from the home of some retired admiral whom he killed with a...
That's fucked up.
During all this, the leader has called President Ross from the home of some retired admiral whom he killed with his wife, and then the leader exploits Ross's stress level to try to goad him into becoming the Red Hulk. Ross's eyes turn red, and his calves bulge, and he squeezes the metal of the bulkhead, but Sam manages to...
Yeah.
Back immerses you in a universe with thousands of...
To stop, Jack.
That scene right there, that is the other scene I was talking about. It was his assistant, his personal assistant, that had walked in on him because she was looking for him. And she saw Buddy just hunched over, gripping the hell out these damn metal poles. I'm like, again, when he let go, you could physically see, like, Buddy had crushed these damn things. I'm over here thinking, like, why in the hell? Why did nobody question how in the hell is Buddy being able to squeeze these poles right here? Like, it's this old man, fam. Like, this older guy just hunched over and then just squeezing the ever-living life out of his poles, and then you let go, you can just see they're toast. And you're standing right there next to him, and you don't notice this, and you still don't realize that something is off. Whatever.
Kamikaze dive by ejecting him and using his cable to pull the stick up and crash the F-18 in the water past the ship. When Japan sees that the United States pilots were clearly out of control, both sides back off. So as Joaquin undergoes surgery at Walter Reed, Sam is greeted by, hey, James Buchanan Barnes, who's apparently running for Congress right now. It's so good to see these two back together after the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Sam just telling Bucky to leave him alone just reminds us of when he refused to move the seat up. And you'll notice that Bucky appears on his left, which I wouldn't normally cite as a detail because 2 people standing side by side will always have someone on someone's left. But the camera just lined them up perfectly for Bucky to suddenly appear on Sam's left side. Sam asks Bucky how many alien invasions Steve had stopped, and Bucky says 2. I'm assuming those 2 were the Chitauri invasion in the Battle of New York and Thanos' forces in Infinity War and Endgame, but I thought that was weird that they credit Steve with that when Sam and Bucky both helped stop the Thanos invasion as much as Steve did. Sam wishes he took the super soldier serum, and he says that Steve made a mistake by giving him the shield, but Bucky says that taking the serum wouldn't help Sam protect everyone he cares about, saying Steve gave people something to believe in, but you gave them something to aspire to. And Sam narrows his eyes and calls out that his speechwriters wrote that line, and Bucky confirms yes, but hey, the line had emotion, and he goes, just enough. And he's doing a specific kind of political hand gesture there that looks like something that he did in the character he played in The Apprentice. And yes, as we will see in Thunderbolts, Bucky Barnes will become an elected member of the House of Representatives, despite being an international assassin and a fugitive. And as Sam reminds us, 110 years old. But hey, that's also not that far off from the median age of senators and House members that we have in this country. Dunphy gets his call from, I'm just going to say it, off screen.
Yo, wait, I'm about dead, Phil. Wait.
Median age of senators and House members that we have in this country. Dunphy gets his call from, I'm just going to say it, off-screen Amadeus Cho, but before he can warn Sam, Stearns stops his heart with a specific frequency device that I think might be based on the device that Obadiah Stane used to parallel.
And this was the scene I was referring to earlier where they did my boy dirty. I'm like, darn, man, they had to stop his heart like that. I mean, granted, you know, accuracy and lore to the comics and whatnot. Darn, he ain't really got that much screen time.
Tony Stark and Iron Man. Ross talks to Betty on the phone, and we hear Liv Tyler's voice as Ross looks at these Photoshop family photos. And I love it when movies do this, taking what looks like a Last Crusade era Harrison Ford with a Photoshop mustache with a young Liv Tyler from around the time the public realized that she was Steven Tyler's daughter. Stearns turns himself into Sam in front of the hospital, asking for counsel from a man at the end of his rope, again reminding us that Sam used to run these group therapy sessions. Stearns and Sam make a bet that Ross is actually a monster and that he'll kill Sam. Meanwhile, Ross speaks in front of the press in the Rose Garden. The press asks Ross about Stearns going public about Ross's imprisonment of him, and while Ross denies it, Stearns had arranged for the audio of their phone call during the Celestial Island battle to play over the speakers. Secret Service pulls Ross away, and a lot happens at once, and it's kind of silly. Like, why would they so aggressively pull him away? Like, he's not in immediate physical danger if Stearns was arrested, and it's not the Secret Service's job to be like, hey, Mr. President, you should take these questions. You would think it would be like political advisors would be like, hey, Mr. President, maybe, wrap things up. But either way, in his anger, he collapses to the ground, and he Red Hulks the out. There's specifically a shot where his pinky finger bends sideways, and this looks painful. And as he rises from behind the podium, we notice a piece of singed cloth burns off his chest, and we see smoke. This is a very important detail, because the key difference about Red Hulk from the comics, while his skin is not invulnerable like Green Hulk, Bruce Banner's skin is, Red Hulk does radiate heat and causes his thrown objects to become explosive projectiles. Now, the design of Red Hulk is pretty great, I gotta say. They used most of the same visual assets from the 2012 redesign of the Hulk and all the ways it improves over the years through the Smart Hulk design in Endgame and in She-Hulk, which I think is why they gave Harrison Ford a high and tight buzz cut so that the hairline would match with what they already had. They also included the striations in his pectoral muscles and gave him a layer of chest hair, because we've seen Harrison Ford with his shirt off in a lot of movies and we expect a bit of shag. And when he roars, it seems like they even kept a bit of Harrison Ford's crooked lower teeth and Red Hulk's jawline. And look, the close-ups of Red Hulk look really good in this movie. There's some of the wide shots where the VFX looks a little rough, which is why I think they cut this sequence together pretty tightly so that we couldn't linger on it and focus on it too much. And I guarantee you, when this comes out in 4K, it's suddenly going to look a lot better. But either way, this is awesome. Marvel fans have expected Thaddeus Ross to transform into the Red Hulk ever since that 2008 Incredible Hulk post-credit scene showed Ross drunk in a bar, which was based on the World War Hulk storyline comic issue that revealed the Red Hulk's identity of Thaddeus Ross by flashing back to Ross drunk in a bar just like this. It's taken 17 years, but we're finally here. Red Hulk turns on the firing Secret Service agents, and Sam lands to fight him. Upon that first punch, the glowing purple vibranium tech on Sam's left shield begins to glitch. Red Hulk thunderclaps! The beloved Hulk range attack that Hulk did in the 2008 film, but Joss Whedon thought the thunderclap was goofy, so we never got to see it in Avengers 2012 or in Avengers Age of Ultron, but it did come back in She-Hulk. Red Hulk smashes Sam through the White House, and they fight on the roof using the American flagpole as a bat and then a spear that takes down an attack helicopter, and then Red Hulk takes that attack helicopter and throws it into another one, and then gives a triumphant roar from the roof, giving the tourists outside by the fence a view of a lifetime. During these early salvos, Sam realizes that his vibranium wings and his daggers do penetrate Red Hulk's skin, which is a key thing that he notes. Red Hulk leaps off the roof, imploding.
That scene right there where Buddy leaped from the roof of that building, not gonna lie to you, that scene was fire. One more time.
Penetrate Red Hulk's skin, which is a key thing.
Seeing it in the theaters. Fire scene. I was like, oh, Buddy, I mean, just completely demolished that damn thing.
That he notes. Red Hulk leaps off the roof, imploding it on the dismount. They leap past the Washington Monument, last seen in the MCU during Spider-Man Homecoming. Sam leads Red Hulk into Haines Point, which is the southern tip of the East Potomac Park between the Potomac and the Washington Channel. Actually, in this park is a real-life sculpture called The Awakening that kind of looks like the emergence of Tiamat. Sam's plan was to use the cherry blossoms of this park to remind Ross of his trips with Betty. Sam kickflips the shield.
You want me? Come and get me!
Red Hulk charges in and punches Sam around the cars, and he throws a flaming car at Sam, which Sam has to leap over and cut in half with his vibranium wing. Red Hulk lunges at him, and Sam forms a dome with his wings and his shield that Red Hulk just hammers down upon, weakening the purple vibranium glow, which seems to just overwhelm these wings, even though they're absorbing the kinetic energy, so that when Sam tries to fly away, they're just still glowing too bright, which gives Red Hulk some time to grab the jetpack and then rip off one of the wings. And it's terrifying here because Sam just looks so helpless. He nearly crushes Sam's head. And God, it's like when Thanos chiseled away at Tony's armor in the Battle of Titan in Infinity War and then grabbed him by the head. Like, all he has to do is just, But then Sam waits for Red Hulk to lunge at him and, using his one remaining wing, stabs Red Hulk in the gut using the same wing stab move that he used in the Battle of Earth in Avengers Endgame. And because the wings are so overloaded, this move particularly freaks out the wing, causing the percussive blast to blow them all back. But Red Hulk still is not down. But as the cherry blossom petals float around, Sam gives a speech to appeal to Ross's goodness as a father. This speech looked...
But he pulled out that talk no jutsu. But he wholeheartedly pulled out that talk no jutsu.
Looks like it might have been shot on a different green screen slate compared to the rest of the
sun's getting real low.
Scene that might have been part of the reshoots that was inserted into the scene. I don't know. I'm not sure. But while the cherry blossom petals burned on Ross's chest and his shoulders, now when he holds his hand out, one lands on the palm and it does not burn, which in a way is kind of like Natasha's sun's getting real low hand move on Hulk in Age of Ultron. So in the final sequence, Isaiah gets released. Another newscast mentions that we're entering a brave new world of adamantium, but no other application is suggested. We see scaffolding around the Washington Monument and White House showing repairs, and we return to the Raft, the floating prison from Captain America's Civil War. Ross rests in a cell wearing the same blue jumpsuit that Sam and the others had to wear when Ross locked them up in Civil War. We learn that Ross resigned and accepted his sentence, and Japan upheld the treaty, the Ross-Ozaki Accords. We don't know who the vice president was and who's president now, but there does seem to be a political vacuum in which people like, CIA Director Val or Secretary of State Toby Ziegler or even New York City Mayor Wilson Fisk could rise up into. In the background of the scene, there's a prisoner in a neighboring cell reading a book. Haha. I think this might be Zemo, who did end the Falcon the Winter Soldier back in his cell on the raft reading his books, just like this. The shape of his head also kind of looks like it might be the leader, who we know is also on the raft from the post-credit scene, but that post-credit scene didn't look like it was the same floor Ross is on, and in that post-credit scene, we don't see any shelves of books that Zemo has in his cell. We should also note that if Marvel Studios moves forward to confirm that all of Luke Cage and all of Jessica Jones are also MCU canon, along with the Netflix Daredevil seasons, also imprisoned here on the raft would be Willis Stryker, Diamondback, and Trish Walker, Hellcat. Liv Tyler cameos in this scene as Betty Ross, making peace with her father. Now, there was a different deleted scene that we know about from set photos at an outdoor funeral that Betty Ross would have attended, and that funeral was even shown in, all of the trailers. So I think there is an old version of this movie that maybe had Thaddeus Ross not surviving. It's just weird that they showed so much of that funeral in the trailers if they knew that they had this raft scene. But we end the film with Sam and Joaquin. Joaquin says he always aspired to be like Sam, and Sam says that he's only always on point because he fears that if he ever messes up, he'll let down all the other people fighting for a seat at the table. This is a heavy and meaningful exchange that I wish we saw more of between these two men throughout the film. But either way, it's a great statement about the pressure of heroism to end the film on. The two men joke about reaching out to the Wakandans for a new suit for Falcon, and the closing credits feature Kendrick Lamar's new track, I, over flashing blue and white squares, recalling the leader's mind control. I broke down the leader post-credit scene and how this movie could lead to Avengers Doomsday in another video. Go check that out. But those are all the Easter eggs I spotted in Captain America Brave New World. I gave my numerical rating and ranking in my no spoiler review that came out earlier this week, and today on the Break Room channel, we'll be giving a more spoiler review discussion and just a live stream Q&A where we'll get into more of our nuanced takes on what works and what doesn't work in this movie. So join us on the Break Room for that conversation. Comment down below with your thoughts on this movie.
Well, that was the breakdown. Spoilers, or spoiler warning. I know this is this is possibly the latest spoiler warning, but hey, spoiler warning. I'm gonna also put it in the beginning of the video for people who probably haven't watched it as well. So hey, but nah, like I said, it was a pretty decent movie. It wasn't horrible or anything like that by any means. Definitely better than a lot of some of the more recent, Marvel movies that had been coming out as well. But it would be something I would be willing to watch again. maybe. But that's gonna end it for our year. I'll catch y'all in the next one, family. Peace out.